This is Jimmy.
And Scott.
And this is the Lead Domino podcast powered by MDP Lacrosse. On this podcast, we will be discussing with athletes, coaches, and other professionals what specific mental techniques they utilize to prepare, compete, and recover. These are the questions that fascinate us, and we want to hear what our guests do to be their best mentally. And hopefully, you get a little something out of these episodes to help move you forward. On today's episode, we host Dan Achatz. Dan is a Long Island native who graduated from Seaford High School and played lacrosse and graduated from Rutgers University and received his master's in education from Manhattanville. At Rutgers, Dan was named captain and earned all ECAC honors. Dan also earned the Rutgers Lacrosse Knight Cup, which is awarded to the player who has played the game of lacrosse to the best of his ability, who has, by example, inspired or led his teammates both on and off the field, and who, above all, has consistently demonstrated the qualities of unselfishness and loyalty to his team and Rutgers University. Dan currently teaches high school in Valley Stream. He was the boys varsity lacrosse coach at Valley Stream from 2007 to 2014. Currently, he is the boys varsity lacrosse assistant at Plain Edge High School and boys varsity basketball coach at Valley Stream North. Along with Dan's teaching and high school coaching, he is the owner and operator of Be the Best Sports Camp, which focuses on training, clinics, and camps. Dan's competitiveness and intensity is clear. Dan shares the preparedness tools he's experimented with and which ones he uses to this day. He's bringing the same fire and discipline to his coaching ventures as he brought as an athlete, and it's super exciting. To learn more about Dan and his projects, visit and follow btbsportscamp.com, on Instagram at btbsportscamp, and on Facebook, Be the Best Camp. Had a great conversation with Dan, and I hope you guys enjoy it. We are very excited to have Dan here. Dan's got a lot of good stuff going on, and he's got a lot of knowledge to share with all of us. So, without further ado, we got Dan here, and he's just going to set the context, give a little background of who he is, what he's about, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, and first and foremost, I just wish everybody health and everybody get through this time period, because it's a strange time, and it's impacting a lot of families, especially athletes too.
Yeah.
But as far as my upbringing, I'm your typical '90s Long Island kid. We grew up outside. Me and my buddies. We never really were in the house, and I think that played a role in my life. Because every weekend, even after school, at the practices, we were all together still until basically that sun went down. We were either playing basketball, soccer, football. It really didn't matter the sport, stickball. So I was molded with my buddies into like this whole competitive state of mind, and we always challenged either the older kids, even the younger kids. I think that was kind of the Seaford upbringing. And I think it's still similar to that in ways, but I don't see it as much with kids.
Yeah, I think we were kind of in that last generation of kids who were playing outside and competing in all different sports. It's kind of like after us, it started to get a little more structured, Yeah,
the kids have more things to do now, as far as leagues and club teams and all that other stuff. We never had that. So
I tell parents all the time, like I can't promise that if I was 14 years old with all these distractions, video games, social media, that I don't know. I mean, who knows? Who's to say that I wouldn't be distracted by all that? Just luckily we didn't have it. Just luckily we didn't have it.
I agree 100%. And I'm lucky that we didn't have it either, because the memories that I have with my buddies playing football, playing basketball at the park all the time.
Yep.
I mean, we still talk about it to this day.
Oh yeah.
Even roller hockey. We were big into roller hockey too. It was like any
huge,
sport that we could
man.
play.
Street hockey. Oh yeah.
Pickleball. We used to go to Jones Beach and play pickleball. We used to do it all. And but I was always that kid who was a little bit smaller than everybody else, super quick. But I was always undersized, and I always, you get picked on for that stuff. Everybody makes fun of each other as far as your boys growing up.
Yep.
But it always left a mark on me, and I always wanted to be, no matter what it was, what we were playing on the weekend, I wanted to be the best out there.
Yeah.
Just because I wanted to prove everybody wrong, and that was kind of a mentality that I grew up with from elementary school. And I'll share a quick little story.
Please.
they have this turkey run, which is a 1 mile run, and it's 4th and 5th graders. And in 4th grade, I lost. I came in 2nd, and for some reason, it burned me.
You remember who came in first?
Angry over. What did you say?
You remember who came in first?
Yeah, I remember who came in first. Of course, I remember who, because I beat him the next year.
Oh, nice.
But what I did was, I asked my mom to drop me off at Seaford High School at the track. And for almost, I would say about 6 months, I would train and run a mile. Just prepare for this. And my mom would sit out in the van, and she'd watch me run.
God bless her.
And I'm not kidding you. That's what I did. So then at the end of 5th grade, we had the turkey run. And, long story short, I blew this kid out of the water.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I still have that trophy because for some reason my parents, it meant a lot to them, that trophy. I really could care less. I didn't even know I still had it.
Yeah.
But they gave it to my daughter. So now my daughter has that turkey trot trophy.
Oh, that's cool.
In her room. Yeah, it's cool. A pretty cool story.
That's cool.
But I think like that is where everything started for me as far as knowing what it needed to take to beat somebody else.
That's interesting.
And
that's very interesting.
And it translated, yeah. And even in middle school, then I used to take my bike. I have my lacrosse stick. I'd have a basketball. I have a soccer ball, and I go at Saturday mornings at like 8 a.m. because I'm a morning person. I always get up early.
Yeah.
Always have, and I'd be at the field by myself. And I would always do that almost every Saturday. Nobody was there, and I was the only kid there. And then around like noon, people would start showing up. But I was already there for like 3 or 4 hours.
Got all your reps in. You were ready to go.
And that's the thing too, is that I never really knew how to do reps. So I was always like kind of like simulating the game in my head out there on the field, which helped me though, because I always became somebody who visualized everything. And being undersized, I had to make up for that. And it was either through my hard work, which from a young age, I always had, or the mental aspect of the game. I would always visualize what I wanted to achieve before I stepped on the field, 2 days before, and I would play everything out in my head.
Now, when you say you'd visualize for the next game, or like your overall aspirations and goals?
I would visualize more of what I wanted to achieve in a game.
Okay.
I would think about who was guarding me, how I would want to make my moves. If I was guarding somebody else, what they would do and how I would kind of react to it. And I've always been that way, even through high school, college. But then once you get to the next level, then you're starting to watch film, and then film became a whole other aspect of my life, and I got so dialed into film and studying people and studying the game.
So you were into film. You liked the film.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I'll give you a quick story too about film.
Yeah.
When I got to Rutgers, well, first of all, let's go back before Rutgers. Okay. I was never really recruited. I had like 50 goals my senior year, but I played at Seaford. We were just always average.
Okay.
I went to 4-star lacrosse camp. You remember that?
Of course I do. Of course.
So I went to 4-star lacrosse camp, and Coach McEntee, who was previously the Manhattan coach.
Yeah.
He was my coach there.
Currently at Hofstra.
He was the first guy that goes, wow, man, you're like super quick and you dodge and you split and everything that you got is so good, but it's so raw. Because I was never really taught the proper way, but I was always able to, I had that quickness. It was natural to me.
Sure.
I was able to just react to other people. So he actually was the first person to start really going over how to dodge properly. And I really gravitated towards it.
He's a good guy to learn from.
What did you say?
He's a good guy to learn from.
Yeah, I mean, that was the first time I really experienced coaching. At
4-star.
At a high school level for me, and these kids today, they have everything on social media. There's so much great content out there.
Oh, yeah.
But you have to know how to do it.
Yep.
You have to know how to really conceptualize it, understand the process of it, and not just, watch it and try to do it. You really have to understand, I think. And I think there's a lot of people out there that just watch it and try to simulate it, but it's not the real thing.
Or a lot of kids just watch it, or they just watch it and think they know it without even really repping it. It's like, oh, I saw that clip. But, that's a piece. Watching it's a piece of the puzzle, and then it's about repping, and then that's what you're getting at.
Yeah, and I grew up not having any of that, but I mentally kind of knew how to juke, and that stems from 5th grade football with my boys. I used to watch Barry Sanders, and I always wanted to be like him.
Yeah, man.
So when I was at 4-star, I got asked by a lot of college coaches who I was. I thought I was Pat Walsh at first.
Oh, there you go, yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not Pat Walsh, man. I grew up with him. I played with him, but I'm not Pat Walsh. And that's how Brian Breck, who is the Rutgers coach now, when I was a senior, he was the assistant coach at Rutgers under Bill Durgell.
Yeah, I remember that staff.
And he called me up, and Providence called me. And then all of a sudden, I was getting D1 calls for lacrosse, and I was like, and I was just thinking about going to Nassau and kind of hanging out. Because also nobody, no coaches really helped me through the process. Guidance was just like, where are you going to go? I was ranked 40th in my class. I was a smart kid, but again, there was really no guidance. My parents had no idea what they were doing at all.
Yeah. I mean, really back then, it was, if you made the Empire State Games, you were set. You top 205 was kind of a camp
top
back then.
Top 205 I went to.
Or 4-star. I mean, that was really it. There was no club teams. It was really none of this stuff. So, I mean, the way you went through it.
The Empire Games.
Yeah, right. So
the last tryout, I don't even think they really knew who I was too until the end.
Right. But that was the process back then. So.
Right. You go to away camp and you're like, man, this is it. I got 4 days to prove who I am.
Right. Yeah.
So, but anyway, I remember one play, and a coach came up to me afterwards that I got stripped by somebody, and I sprinted 20 yards and backchecked and got the ball back and then scored a goal. And that's kind of like the person that I am. If something happens to me, I'm going to make sure that I do whatever it takes to make up for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So once Brett called me up, my dad's like, this guy from Rutgers called you. I'm like, Rutgers? I'm like, I saw them on TV the other day. That's when Keith Cromwell was there.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
So I went there on a visit, loved every aspect of it, and that was it. I chose there, and I was one of the last guys to get recruited there. So I was in a dorm without the lacrosse players because I was the last recruit, and the dorm was full. I was this is the story of my life, though.
They just had to find an open bed for you. Yeah.
So Bill Durgell, who was the coach at the time, the guy loved me. He was like, "Oh man, you're gonna be great." And then, I would say 2 months into our season, he leaves. He goes to Loyola.
That's right.
So then Coach Stagnita comes in, who was the Whip Snakes, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah, he's PLL now. Yeah, Whip Snakes.
PLL, yeah. Yep. He won the championship. Great guy.
Yep.
So he sat down with each player individually, and I remember him calling me in. He sits down and he's talking to me, and he goes, "I got to admit, you're kind of small. You're undersized for this level." So right away in my head, I'm going, "Oh man, now I got to prove this guy wrong too."
I've been hearing this my whole life. Yeah.
I've been hearing this my whole life, and he said that to me, and it was it just fed me, and I worked like an animal just to prove him wrong. I didn't even care about the game. I just cared about proving him wrong at that time. And my freshman year had a lot of ups and downs. That's also when I started to appreciate film.
Okay.
He had a list on me that was 2 pages long of everything I did, and he ripped me in front of everybody. I held onto that piece of paper, and it was always a reminder that I'm obviously not doing what I should be doing, and I need to be better than what I'm doing now. And again, another tool is motivation. If you're not using your failures and things that people who've been around the game for a while tell you,
yep,
you're not really, I think, improving as a player or as a person.
It makes a lot of sense.
Really learn from that stuff.
Yeah.
So that's when I got into film too, and that's when I started to really analyze film, break down film. My sophomore year. That I was one of those runt guys. I was a D midi, I was on the wing every single time. You know, I scrapped for every ground ball. I was the leader in ground balls my sophomore and junior year. And then my sophomore year, we played Syracuse. That team won the national championship that year.
Okay.
But one of our best long pole, close D defenders got hurt the week before that game. So then they pulled me inside the office and they're like, hey, Dan, I think you're going to be the best person to fit this role. I'm like, yeah, but you have 3 other poles that have been practicing, you know, the whole season. They're like, yeah, but I think you're going to match up well. So I was like, I mean, I guess I'll try. And then I walk into practice with a long pole, and all the other backup long poles are looking at me like, what is this guy doing?
Yeah, yeah.
And,
wow.
You know.
I never heard that story.
Yeah, it was and I guarded Liam Banks. So it was, you know.
You're the best fit for Liam Banks.
And Springer was on the team. That he was a senior that year.
Okay, yep.
So we go to the Dome.
That's quite the attack right there.
Yeah, you know, and just having a long pole after being like a short stick, like I was more comfortable playing somebody with a short stick than a long pole.
Yeah, right. In the Dome, no less.
Yeah, in the Dome. So I had a week to prep, whatever. Made a ton of mistakes. Constantly focused on what I had to do. Didn't really care what anybody else thought because they were kind of pissed that I was in that spot with the long pole starting with the other 2 close D guys.
Yep.
But the main reason why is because I focus on the little things as far as footwork and paying attention and communication. That was my big thing. Like as a D midi, you could ask any guy that I played with. I was the most vocal guy on that field and kind of orchestrating everything because I studied the game. I knew the game plan. I knew what every team was going to do. So I was calling out everything. So we go to the Dome, and I think Liam Banks had 1 goal, 1 assist.
There you go. Atta boy.
Yeah, I caught like 3 of Mike Springer's shots in my stick, and we won in overtime. So it was
huge,
unbelievable.
Man.
And I never played long pole again.
That was it, huh? 1 and done.
That was it, 1 and done.
Hold Liam Banks to 1-1 with an overtime win in the Dome. All right, Here's your shorty back.
But they needed me on the wing.
Yeah,
they needed me clearing the ball. I that was when the game. It really was a ton of fast breaks. I feel like at that time. I mean, you still see it now, but I remember fast breaking all the time. The goalie would save the ball, he'd give it to me right away, and I was gone.
Yeah.
And I was okay with that. I loved it. I love going through 3 different people, getting all the way down the field, feeding and tapping, scoring a goal, and running off the field. I was so happy with that because all the other players, even with like ground balls and stuff like that, the players cared, and that's all I cared about.
Right.
I didn't really. I wasn't a scorer.
Yeah.
I wasn't, but I had my assists. I was the runt out there that the coach and the players appreciated, and that meant more to me.
That's it, man. That's it. Yeah, 100%. 100%. But I think the important thing is what you're touching on is the fact that you put yourself in a position to just bring value to your team.
Right. I knew my role.
That was it.
I always wanted to be an offensive guy, but I was never taught.
Right.
And at the college level, they're not going to waste their time trying to really train you to be an offensive guy. Like I could break anybody down, but as far as shooting 20 yards out, I couldn't do it. I was never taught how to.
Yep.
So I knew my role. I did it really well, and I loved every minute of it. And I loved being part of the team. As far as the weight room, again, the smallest guy, and I was an animal in the weight room. Why? Because I wanted to prove everybody wrong. And it was always, and it mattered to me.
Right.
I never wanted to go into a situation where I wasn't ready or I wasn't at my best.
Man.
Were there times when I was like that? Of course. You're a kid. I've made plenty of mistakes.
Sure.
But I've always felt guilty if I was like, I really didn't work as hard as I should have. I probably shouldn't have done that the night before, like playing video games with my buddies.
Yeah.
Like the night before a game. Like that, and then I would feel guilty of my performance, and then I would get back to like, all right, this is what I need to do.
Yeah. And it's funny because everyone probably has a story of a kid they grew up with or played college with, what they would consider like the undersized overachiever, and it's like, oh, they were an animal during sprints, during, one-on-one GBs in the weight room. And people are like, well, because they had to.
Yeah,
it's like
it's
like
true. Like every sprint.
It is true, right?
But with sprints, I always won every sprint until my junior year when a freshman came in and ran like a deer in practice. this guy, Devin Pritz, he was a D midi with me.
There you go.
And the two of us together were awesome together.
It's a lot of
speed. He was the first guy I looked at. I was like, man, I don't think I could beat this guy. So then I was like,
but I'm sure you worked at it. I'm sure it fed you.
I tried, man. I could never. I beat him maybe once or twice. He was probably just dogging it.
Yeah.
he had strides, but it's the whole process. You have to like believe in something and really want to achieve it. And, and I feel like a lot of times with kids is that they're seeing all this stuff on social media too, and it's always highlights of goals and all these great plays and all these great moves.
Yeah.
Like they don't, and then you try to teach them the process at times, and kids don't want to go through that process. It sucks.
Right.
It's grueling. You fail. You fail again. You fail numerous times until finally you hit that point where you did something to beat somebody else. You saw that you achieved the goal, and now you want a little bit more.
That's it, man.
And then you get that feeling, and it stays with you.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. It makes sense. And I think, like what we were talking about before with some of the distractions, I like these distractions that kids have that we didn't, thankfully, it takes away from that, even just that plan of like, all right, this is what I want to achieve. And like the majority of the kids that we work with, a lot of them don't have that, and then we start from the very bottom, from the floor, try and build it up. But it's because they're doing other things growing up. So when it comes to sports, a lot of them don't have that vision. And you really got to.
When you become a coach, that's what you realize.
Yeah.
Is that how you thought, how you grew up, means nothing.
Exactly.
Because you have a different group of people in front of you.
100%.
Now you have to learn how to kind of adapt, still maintain your values and your beliefs, but somehow find a way to connect to them.
Right. Right.
Because it's not their fault. This is the way that they're growing up.
100%.
A lot of kids blame these kids. Well, you can't blame them. You have to find ways to reach them.
There you go.
And find their potential.
Yeah.
And that's what I learned really my first 3 years of coaching. It took me a long time to understand that whole thought process.
Yeah. In basketball and lacrosse?
Basketball and lacrosse.
Yep.
Yeah. So I was a varsity lacrosse coach my first year of teaching, which was a lot, and it was a district team, so it was 3 schools all together.
Where was that?
Won more than 3. What?
Where was that?
Stream.
Valley Stream. Okay.
They haven't won more than 3 games in probably 15 years. So we had we didn't have enough helmets, we didn't have enough equipment. The jerseys there were only 20.
Yeah.
None of them really matched, and I had to reach out to Jimmy Amon. I asked him, do you have any equipment for me? So Amon's the man.
Yep.
He's like, come on over to Cold Spring Harbor. He gave me shoulder pads, gloves, elbow pads, anything that I needed.
Wow, that's cool.
Sitting here.
That's cool.
Yeah, so that was my first year. Then I started getting the kids all equipment because nobody could really afford the equipment for that stuff, So yeah, you have to find ways again to make things successful, and that's also reaching out and finding resources.
Yeah.
So, Jimmy was awesome with that, and I thank him for that all the time.
That's a cool story to hear. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was great, man, what he did. It was awesome. So just coaching in general, my first year, I was clueless. I had no idea. I'm like, you know what? This is how I work. I'm going to expect these kids to work the same.
Yep.
And that did not work out.
Creates a lot of headaches with those expectations.
And then I'm also dealing with kids who can't catch and throw. And you got seniors who are just playing just because they want to try a sport.
Yep.
It taught me a lot. And I'm glad that I went through that process. I was the only coach. I didn't have an assistant.
Wow.
For 7 years. So I always had to figure things out.
Wait, hold on. You didn't have an assistant for 7 years?
3 years. No, 3 years I had an assistant. And then after my third year, they got rid of it. And that was it.
Wow.
But for basketball, for 7 years in basketball, I never had an assistant either.
Damn. They're like, Dan's too good. He doesn't need an assistant. He's too good at what he does. That's wild. That is wild.
Yeah. So again, you learn how to, first of all, manage a team by yourself. There's so much more psychological stuff that goes into trying to make a team who's always losing want to be successful.
Yeah.
How do you do that with kids? They're used to losing. How do you turn a program like that around?
How'd you do it?
Love. You show them that you care. That's the number one thing. If you show them that you care about them as a person, not even with sports, they knew how committed I was with sports. But reaching out to them, calling a kid, checking in on a kid. Kid has a problem, with his family. You help it out.
Yeah.
Going above and beyond those ways. That's when I really started to understand the whole process of coaching. It's more than X and O's. It's more than just yelling at kids to work hard. It's really the psychological aspect of it too, and forming a true relationship with kids and a team, and making them feel bonded.
Yeah,
so it took like 3 or 4 years, and then we started winning games. We were beating teams that we never beat before. We went 8-8 one year. Got most improved team.
There you go.
And then at that point, I needed to move on at that point, and I think that's also something that people struggle with, and I'm okay with moving on at times.
Okay.
I think you need to just figure out where you really want to be, and to be stuck in something that you're really not happy at times, because I had to wait for buses to get there. Then I'm traveling all the way back to where I was living, and I was getting home at like 8 o'clock at night. Then I was lesson planning. Then I was game planning. It just became very stressful at times.
Yeah.
So
no doubt. I'm sure you had a young family by then, and you're trying to juggle work, sports, family.
Yeah, it gets a lot, and I've always dealt with teams. I feel like even when I started coaching basketball, the basketball team wasn't very good at Valley Stream North. They won 2 games the previous year that I took over.
Yeah.
When I took over, my first game, I lost like 45 points. I didn't even know what happened. I walked out of the gym. I go, what just happened?
Your head was spinning.
They pressed us the entire game. I could barely get the ball over half court. I'm like, oh man, I got a great game plan. We had a great 3 weeks of practice. We're ready to go.
Yeah.
Woo. And that's the best thing that can happen to you, man. And you have to be willing to accept that stuff.
Well, that's the key right there. You got to be willing to accept it. No doubt.
You have to learn from it, and again, as a young coach, you get angry at it, but once you start to really, your mindset starts to change as you get older, of course, and you really start to, internalize things, and then figure out ways to improve, ways to become a better coach, ways to, draw your players in and become a team, and then also just your whole aspect of game planning and, practices, how you plan a practice. I always thought you could plan a practice in a day.
Yeah.
Now I'm looking at practices for a whole week.
Yep.
And I'm thinking about where I want to be in the next week.
Yep.
How many things do I want to achieve? Did I achieve those things? Yes or no? What do I have to do to achieve them next time? Things like that,
Yeah.
So now with all my teams, I have time markers of where I want to be. And if I'm not there, I have to figure out a way to get there still.
Right, right.
So with basketball, I got crushed my first year. I think I won like 4 games, and I was like excited to win 4 games. And then the following year after that, we won. I think we won like maybe 500. And then my third year is when we won the conference.
Wow!
And I mean, if you know basketball's not easy. It's so intense.
Yep.
Every game matters. I was in the conference with Floral Park, Lawrence, Glen Cove, who was very good at that time. I mean, our conference was one of the best in 2 years. So I won it my third year. We went all the way to the semifinals, which I'd never done. Made it to Hofstra. We played Elmont. We lost to Elmont. I lost by probably 20. They won the whole entire thing, the whole federation.
Wow.
Which has never really been done by Elmont, I don't think. So whatever, you lose to the best team, you're okay with it. Now I lose like 2 kids next year, we're still going to be good. And we worked all summer. Like these were the type of kids that reminded me of, you didn't have to ask them to work hard. These kids believed in what I was doing, and they believed in each other.
That's awesome.
Every practice was so intense. It was a grind. There wasn't like one guy not sweating, one guy not working hard on a drill.
That's hard. That's hard to come by. That's hard to create.
It's hard to come by, and when it does come by, you better be ready for it, and you better prepare just as hard for those kids as you would any other kids. Because
no doubt,
if you think you're just going to win because you got great players, you're eventually going to lose the game.
Yep.
And you're going to lose a big game. So with these kids, I love these kids. I like all my teams, but these kids are really special, and you sense that. And every day was just such a pleasure, and we got after it. They got after me, I got after them. Second that practice was over, we were like a family.
Yeah.
And we made it to the semifinals again. We won the conference. So back-to-back years.
That's huge.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then we played Elmont again. And we lost to Elmont. They ended up winning the counties. But
that's a tough opponent.
The experience and just getting there, having the whole community behind you. Like, I don't think they have ever had, ordered buses to go to a playoff game. So the whole school was at Hofstra for the game.
That's so
it was
cool.
Just like those type of things, and to get to that point, it takes sacrifice. It takes commitment. Winning. If you want to win, it's not easy, especially at the high school level.
Yeah,
we don't recruit. You get the guys that you get, and you have to make it happen.
You get the guys in the pipeline, and you got to figure it out. Yeah.
So when it does happen, it's special, and it doesn't happen for a lot. Like some guys have been coaching for 25 years, and it doesn't happen.
Yep.
That's not saying they're not great coaches. Sometimes you just get great players too.
Yeah.
And you make it all work.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I mean, you hit on like a lot of concepts that are super important to coaches who really look to build relationships. You said it's really not X's and O's, and what I've heard is like it's not the X's and O's, it's the Jimmies and the Joes. Like it's the kids in that huddle, it's the kids in the locker room. That's those relationships that you're talking about. And the other piece that you were talking about that really sticks out is like people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right.
A lot of people have heard those sayings, but they're a little cliche in some circles, but it's the truth. That's really what it comes down to. And a lot of the teams I've been a part of, some of the worst teams I've either played on or coached on, you can say like the relationships, you want to call it leadership, relationships, within the locker room, they were hurting for sure. And you look at some of the best teams, it's the complete opposite. Leadership is strong and relationships are strong.
Yeah, and that's the thing with high school, I think, too, is that, like, sometimes, again, we don't recruit kids, and you get a group of kids that come up, and, you do your best to work with them, you do your best to accommodate them, and sometimes it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And that's the situation, but you just can't give up on that situation. You have to navigate ways to try to rectify it and make it better.
Yeah.
And sometimes can you be successful? Yeah, but sometimes you're not. And you have to be willing to, again, reflect on that and see, I always talk to myself in my head. I go, what could I have done better? Maybe because I never want to see a kid be unsuccessful. And
right.
That's the hardest part about coaching in my eyes.
Yeah.
Because when you want to do your best for a kid. If you're not doing that as a coach, then, I don't know why you're coaching.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can't be for personal gratification coaching. Coaching is all about taking a kid, making him become somebody that he thought he couldn't be, or a team that they thought they couldn't be, and achieving something great, whether it's even having a losing season and winning those 3 games that you never won, or, winning a conference championship.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it's about. It really is. And I've had, multiple stories and all the stops I've been at. That's the same thing. I mean, you can see it. You really can. But, all right.
Yeah.
So you touched on your ability to visualize, right? And you touched on the fact that you learned that based on the way you used to practice as a kid. Now, when did you realize that visualization was actually like a technique that you were using? Like, when can you actually turn around and say,
school?
"Oh, okay"? So you knew that early on.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
I would say, where I really learned it from was when I wrestled.
Okay.
Wrestling, I was able to kind of like visualize what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it, because it's just one-on-one in wrestling.
Right.
And my first 2 years of wrestling in 7th, 8th grade, I didn't wrestle in high school, but I loved wrestling. I was kind of like coerced into playing basketball because I was also good at that too.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, though. Back then, I think still to this day, you could wrestle and play basketball in middle school, right? It's like a split winter season.
So you play 4 sports in middle school back in the day.
Yeah.
Which is phenomenal. Great. I loved every minute of that. So with wrestling is when I really started to pick people apart, especially in the moment too. But just visualizing what I want to do, how I wanted to attack an opponent, and then in high school, I started doing it with every sport. I started doing it in soccer. How I wanted to see the field in soccer. I was a center midfielder. I would know where I wanted the ball to go before I even got it. As it was coming to me in the air. And if my back was to the offense, I already knew how many defenders were behind me. I knew their location, so that when I turned with the ball, I knew exactly where I wanted to go, where only my guy could get it. Was it always successful? No, but I knew exactly how many guys were behind me and where they were located. Same thing with basketball. When I was a point guard. When I got the ball and I started dribbling that ball up the court, I knew where guys were behind me, how close they were to me, and how many guys are in front of me, and the best opportunity to be successful as far as spatial awareness on the court.
So you're going to say that your visualization helped you preparing and actually helped you within the competition?
It had to. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
If you're able to see things and really script the game in your head, all that's doing is helping you see things when you do play.
Yep. No doubt.
And then with lacrosse, I knew where I was supposed to be on every rotation. I knew where offensive guys were. I knew if somebody messed up an assignment, I knew exactly where to go. Where that offensive guy would be. I used to study guys' footwork. I used to study how they made their split dodge. I used to be able to time it to the point where when they made that split dodge, I was able to jam them up.
Yep.
And I used to get a ton of steals off of that stuff too, and also just reading passing lanes. That stuff is what I had to do to overcome so many things, and then it progressed to something where, with coaching, that's stuff that I focus on. I focus on teaching these kids those small aspects of the game that are often overlooked.
Sure.
How to rotate on defense, how to see passing lanes, how to visualize what's in front of you, what's behind you, where you're going to be successful with the ball, and really just understanding the game to help you be successful, not just base it on talent or hard work.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you could put a kid in the right spot at the right time, and all of a sudden, he's bringing a lot of value to the team where maybe his skill sets wouldn't really say that he's good there, but you just knew with the mix on the floor or the field, the opponent, all that good stuff, that he can actually achieve that. So
and that's what I think I also see too is I'll take a kid that somebody will say they'll overlook, and I'll say, you'd probably be very good right here, and I'm going to give you a chance. I'm going to give you an opportunity. And it might not work out the first 2 games, but in my head, I know that you can be successful there. So I'll deal with the backlash of you not being successful because I believe in you. And then 4 games in, now the kid's being successful.
There you go. So you believe in the kid, and then you take the pressure off of him by saying, "I'll deal with the backlash." I mean, if that's not going to bring the best out in a kid, then there's really nothing that will.
Yeah. I mean, you have to believe in something, and sometimes I feel like kids are overlooked who should be given an opportunity.
Yep.
And as a coach, you have to make decisions. You got to live and die by them. You have to deal with the parents. You have to deal with the pressures of it.
Sure.
And I'm a high school coach. Do I make bad decisions at times? Yeah, I guess so. I'm not getting paid for this as a profession, but to me, I do this religiously every single day, and at night.
Yep.
I'm always thinking about things, always diagramming, always scheming,
Always.
It doesn't shut off.
There really is no off. There really is no off button. There really isn't. That's funny. That's funny. Well, that's a lot of good stuff, man. I mean, that really is. So what are you doing now? What's your project that you're working on now that you want people to know about?
So last year I started my own business, Be the Best Sports Camp. So I always loved camps. I always loved working camps, and then it became where I was running people's camps for them almost. And because I loved working with kids, and again, you put me in a role, doesn't matter what role you put me in, yep. I'm going to give you my best effort.
Yep.
And then I started realizing as I got older that people are starting to take advantage of me. They're relying on me, knowing that I'm going to do everything basically for them. And then as you get older, you're like, you know what? I want to do it my way.
Yeah, right.
Because I believe in what I've done over the years with kids. I've been training kids since I was, right out of college. And I wanted to take everything that I basically read, studied, my own thought process, and I want to make it, happen for this community around me here in Plain Edge, and just other players, and it goes beyond just sports.
Yeah.
I was never taught by like a coach, how to be a great person. How to do something that that's out of the norm for a kid.
Right.
I was never I used to be angry after the games. Nobody came and talked to me and be like, hey, listen, maybe you should approach it this way. Have a different mindset. I want to try to teach kids at an early age how to have the appropriate mindset to be successful. So by the time they graduate high school,
yeah,
they're ready for things that most kids aren't.
Yeah.
And they're able to handle obstacles, handle things that are going to be difficult in life. I always struggled with that. And then when I got to my 30s, because I was always like, man, I'm always the guy who was always getting the short end of the stick.
Right.
Yeah, and then my mentality changed because that's just a poor way of looking at life.
Now, did something happen specifically that helped that change? Or do you just think it's years of experience that finally just clicked?
Experience is progression in life.
Yeah.
You get married, you have kids, and your whole outlook changes as far as life.
Yeah.
Everything I do now, I want to be a great husband, a great father. I want to when I do something, I want to do it with a purpose that's going to be successful.
Yep.
For somebody else. Like with my camps is, I ran a camp for my first year. I was very nervous going in.
Yep.
I over-prepared. I feared to fail, which I think helped me be successful. I knew that I could be successful, but it's the whole notion of doing it on your own now.
Yeah.
And having people believe in you.
Yep.
And I think it went well. And I think people see my vision and see that it's pure, it's genuine. I have passion, I have energy, and I'm really doing it for the kids. And I want to see this next generation of kids be successful at an earlier age, especially mentally.
Sure.
Because they have more pressures than we did, I think, especially with the whole social media stuff. They have to deal with a lot mentally, and I think that gets overlooked at times by people our age or even older because we never experienced it.
Right.
And we have to find ways to relate to it also.
Yeah, I think like to your point, I think a lot of it has been accelerated. Like when we were in high school, it was like, yeah, let's, SATs are coming up, like buy a book, maybe jump in a prep class and take the test. Now it's like super early, kids are like anxious about it, like actual anxiety about standardized testing. And that's the stuff that, we didn't really have. I mean, we wanted to do well, but it wasn't what it is today.
Right.
So I feel like it's just been accelerated and it's exaggerated. And for better or worse, I don't know. I'm not the one to say, but with the preparation we're talking about, you never know if that's going to help a kid or if it's going to hurt a kid. You know. So. And
I think too with my business too is that there's so Long Island. It's the most competitive sports, especially with lacrosse there is in the United States almost.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking, especially for me, I'm just a small, first year guy. And to me, I don't care how small or big I am. My goal is to really focus on the kids and never water it down.
Sure.
Never just, make the parents pay a certain amount of money and have, 4 different, an A, a B, a C, and a D team.
Right.
And the D team is not being treated the same as the A team.
Sure.
I want to try to go back to the old ways and really appreciating what's in front of you, which is the kids.
Yeah.
And I think that's been overlooked for years here. And it's not, I don't think it's, it's not saying anything against anybody, but I just want to do it different.
Well, you don't want to compromise your values. I mean, you have your values. Obviously, they're very, based around compassion and knowledge and, just caring for people. And you don't want to compromise that. Right. I mean, it makes sense. Yeah. Definitely makes sense. So where can people find out about Be the Best Sports Camps and what's social media? Where can they find you?
Social media for Instagram is at BTB Sports Camp, and then for Facebook it is at Be the Best Camp. So we have a ton of photos on there, videos. I post stuff all the time, workouts on there. And then if you want to go to the website, it's www.btbsportscamp.com. And that's where you see all our information as far as clinics, because we do basketball and we also do lacrosse. And then we run camps over the summer here in Plain Edge. And hopefully we're able to kick those off with this whole thing that's going on. That's, it stinks for the kids, especially like my seniors for Plain Edge lacrosse.
Yeah, I know.
Breaks my heart, man. Breaks my heart for these kids.
It does.
And we won the conference last year, and they changed the conferences this year, so we're going to play, tougher competition, and we wanted to kind of prove ourselves. And for those seniors, it stinks that they're not going to be able to do it. And I feel terrible, even for the parents. Imagine being a parent and not being able to watch your kid at senior year.
I know, it's terrible. It really is. It's such a strange time, and all those seniors, collegiate seniors, if they're able to replay their year, good for them. For the kids who can't, sucks for them, sucks for the high school kids and coaches. I mean, we enjoy doing it also.
I know. This is
but
our
for
lifestyle,
them,
man.
But the good thing is, as coaches, we always return the next year.
Right,
you hit senior year and that's it. You move on to college, you move on to whatever you're doing, and that chapter of your life is over. And that's really.
Hopefully, maybe we can figure something out to do for those kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Over the summertime, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Hopefully it works. Hopefully it works out.
Yeah.
But Dan, it was a pleasure having you. Really appreciate
it. Thank you so
much. Best of luck in everything you do, and we're definitely going to stay in touch and keep in touch with the podcast.
I appreciate everything. Keep working hard, everybody.
All right. Thanks, Dan.